Alright, good evening ladies and gentlemen. It being 6 p.m, I'll declare open the October Ordinary Council meeting of the Shire of Capel. We wish to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land we are meeting on, the Wadandi people. We wish to acknowledge and respect their continuing connection to the land, rivers and community. We pay our respects to all members of the Aboriginal communities and their culture, and to the elders past and present, their descendants who are with us today and those who will follow in their footsteps. Record of attendance, 8 councillors in attendance tonight. Councillor Taryn Troy had an approved leave of absence for this meeting, however she has joined us this evening. Response to previous public questions taken on notice are published within the agenda. We now move to public question time. A few on notice here from Mr. Mike Norton.
Thank you, Mr. Mr. Chairman. A couple of questions. The first one relates to the Capel Country Club, and that came out of a series of questions I sent an email to through information Capel Shire. 2 questions got handled, and I've made contact with your maintenance man, Gary O'Neill, and we'll be meeting with him on Friday to go through those issues. But the question in the middle was in relation to there was a review done back in 2019 by HFP in relation to the Capel Country Club, and within that review there was some expenditure there for in 2026 about 1.7 million. So I was just sort of inquiring as to where that is, but as I got referred back to another set of minutes, of council minutes on the 28th, which we'll cover in a minute. The minutes of council meeting 28th of August 2024, Capel SSP plan, page 81.3, under Capel development of an integrated club facility of approximately 1,000 square metres and subsequent demolition of the existing country club. Is it the intention of the Shire and councillors to eliminate the Capel Country Club as an entity by demolishing the country clubhouse and CB and bowling clubhouse? If they do, then the full licence, which is the property of the CCC, will return to liquor and gaming. If the above is not correct, where does the CCC and all its licensing and legal requirements, liquor licence responsibilities along with compliant facilities fit with the long-term strategic plan of the Capel Shire? And other issues, the ongoing maintenance of the existing building. Is there a timeline when you do nothing to that building? And that particular building on the 26th of January will be 50 years old. And as the original review said, that, that there's issues with the roof and a few other things. But it's been one of the key watering holes in Capel for 50 years, and a lot of people, it happened back in 2010. Paul Sheedy tried to bring all the sporting groups together to relocate the country club, but that didn't happen. There was a big pushback. So, and you have to bear in mind that our licensing arrangements with liquor and gaming cover not only the building, but the bowling greens and the car park. And if you're going to relocate it, just where the country club fits and the mugs that have got to run it is a bit of a question, because there's a lot of legal obligations and fines, and get people to step up in a voluntary capacity to run places like that, they're few and far between. And I have been there for a while. I did 10 years, 73 to 83, and I've done nearly another 10 years from 2015 to 2025. Do know a little bit about it. So I guess it's up to the councillors to give us some direction as to where you're going with it, Mr. Chairman.
Sure, thanks Mr. Norton. In response to your first question, the adopted Sports Spaces Plan is a guide to the planning, staging, funding and delivery of future community sporting infrastructure throughout the Shire of Capel. Part of the plan's purpose is to identify future sport spaces provisions to accommodate the growing population in the individual town sites. The plan will also consider current Shire facility usages and purpose to identify facilities that can be repurposed or redeveloped to suit the evolving demographic needs of the community. The Capel Country Club is a facility that has been identified in the plan as being prime for redevelopment or repurposement, given the club's location and proximity to the adjoining sporting facilities. As the plan states, before any decision is made by council to redevelop or repurpose any Shire facility, a site master planning process will need to be undertaken to ensure that the site and location can feasibly accommodate the growing needs of the Capel community. This will be triggered by population growth if and when that occurs. With the above in mind, the council has no decision and has made none to date to demolish the Capel Country Club or stop its operations. In relation to your second question, the Shire is in the process of reviewing its long-term financial plan in preparation for the financial year 25-26. For the country club, some elements that will factor into any future decisions are the ongoing development of asset management plans for the Shire's facilities and what the maintenance and renewal costs will be for the country club, given that the building is now 50 years old. The Shire's leasing framework and how this will impact the country club's responsibilities for ongoing upkeep and maintenance. Population growth and the need to expand or build new sporting facilities within the Capel Sporting Precinct, and operation of other licensed facilities within the Shire in particular, and within the Capel town site. There are many elements to the ongoing future of the Capel Country Club, and it is important to understand that no consideration or no decision has been made by council in relation to the future of the Capel Country Club at this point in time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's fine. We'd certainly like a copy of that if it's possible, to sort of, so that we can head off any gossip around town and say that you're going to knock the place over at any time in the future, because that's what your minute says. You're going to demolish the. Probably not very well written, but anyhow, that's up to you people as to how you want to write your minutes. So,
sure.
Because I have to keep the members involved. And because we cover the whole site, as per our constitution, we do have an MOU with the bowling club. They all have to be members of the country club, and if you're going to pilot in with other sporting bodies, you'd have to have a similar sort of arrangement with all those sporting bodies, because it is a licensed premises, and the fines are pretty substantial.
Sure.
Second question, Mr. Chairman. Can the WA farmers have an updated proposed Capel Shire Agri Precinct for the replacement of born-up sale yards? We've been made aware that an eastern state meat processor are being encouraged by local consultants to build an abattoir close to Perth with the help of government funding. These investors and local consultants see the Capel Agri Precinct as an unnecessary investment for government monies compared to their project. That was a phone call I had come out of the blue, which surprised me. And yes, Shire CEO asked me, I have found, it was a Mark Thomas from Mundajong. He's the chairman of the Western Beef. I've got his mobile number and everything here for you if you want it. And he told me that one of the consultants he's working with is one of the same consultants that the Shire had some work to do with early in the piece, which sort of surprised me a little bit. But I have had some dealings with this lady before, and she tends to run with the hares and hunt with the hounds a little bit. I certainly hope that that's not the case here. So, and I'm getting a lot of inquiry as to how we're going with it, and
sure.
We've heard nothing very much. So whereabouts are we, Mr. Chairman?
Sure. The Shire of Capel Council at the ordinary meeting on the 3rd of October, so last month, awarded the request for tender to Hatch Consultants to prepare Part B of the Agribusiness Precinct Study, having already completed Part A, which was stages 1, 2 and 3, which included the engagement, demand and opportunities analysis and the preferred site identification. Part B comprises of the following stages and is intended to inform and assist the Shire to demonstrate the development potential and to present a case for investment to the Commonwealth Government, State Government, industry businesses and investors in relation to the Shire of Capel Agribusiness Precinct. And so Part B comprises of feasibility, including detailed costings, funding and investment design, development, staging and ownership, management, governance, operational considerations, a business case, and the approval, construction and operation of the precinct. The background and project delivery timing and milestones can be found in the council minutes from the 30th of October, and a link will be included in these minutes to these questions as well. Finally, yes, the Shire has recently become aware of a view that appears to originate from within the middle management levels of the Department of Primary Industries and Regional Development regarding the Shire of Capel Agribusiness Precinct. We do not agree with this view, and all engagement work undertaken indicates that neither does the industry. The Shire has received inquiries from noxious industry operators in the metropolitan area that are being impacted by residential area encroachment, looking to move to the new Shire of Capel Agribusiness Precinct. Further to Deloitte's study in 2017 indicated that transport costs are so critical to the viability of the industry that producers will not take their livestock to Waterloo, let alone the metropolitan area. The Shire has recently sent detailed information to DPIR's Deputy Director General to better inform their thinking. We have also recently briefed the State Minister for Agriculture, the Federal Minister for Local Government and Regional Development, as well as the Shadow Minister for Agriculture.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. If we can get a copy of that, it will be much appreciated.
Thank you, Mr Norton.
My apologies, I have to leave. We've got corporate bowls on tonight, and we've got 18 teams playing with 72 people, and they're all young and vibrant, and they're good drinkers, so we can't disappoint them. And we've got about 40 meals, so thank you very much.
I wish you a good game, Mr Norton. All right, are there any further public questions? Nope. All right, applications for leave of absence is an application from Councillor Mogg for the May and June Ordinary Council meeting. Councillor Tarantroy? Are there any applications further? Can I get a mover and a seconder for those? Councillor Dillon. Seconded Councillor McCleary. Any discussion on that? I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Declarations of interest. I've received none this evening. Is that correct? Yep. Notices of items to be discussed behind closed doors. There is one item for discussion. Item 20.1, Designated Senior Employee, Director of Community and Corporate Services, Extension of Employment Contract. Confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary meeting of Council from the 30th of October 2024. There's a recommendation there that the minutes be accepted as a true and correct record. Is there a mover for those minutes? Councillor McCleary, seconded by Councillor Mogg. Councillor McCleary, Councillor Mogg. Any discussion on those minutes? Nothing further from the mover. I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? That's carried unanimous. Announcements by the presiding member. Have none this evening. My activity report is contained there within. Petitions, deputations and presentation. We have one presentation this evening from Chrissy Cunningham. Oh, apologies for that. Right. From MBS Environmental on item 14.2, amendment to extractive industry approval to increase haulage and hours of operation, lot 393 Lowry Road, Gwindinum.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. So my name is Kirsi Kauhanen. I'm a principal environmental scientist at MBS Environmental. I'm here to give a presentation today regarding the item 14.2, which relates to the extractive industry on lot 393 Lowry Road in Gwindinum. MBS provides environmental consulting services, including approvals assistant for the applicant Mario Michele-Ciacci and the pit operator MGM. We prepared some of the application documentation. So I will provide a summary of the two amendments, or the two key amendments that the applicant is seeking to the existing DA, and then I'll address some of the issues with the draft conditions in the agenda. Starting with matter one, which is adding half-day operations for Saturdays. So lot 393 has an operational extractive site, and the existing DA specifies that site operations are limited to Monday to Friday. The applicant is seeking to add half-day operations on Saturdays in order to cater for clients who also operate on Saturdays, and that require material deliveries on Saturdays, and this could be road construction or housing developments, for example. The proposed operations on Saturdays would be limited to 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. The applicant is currently at a competitive disadvantage as there are other extractive sites within Shire of Capel and other local government areas that allow half-day operations on Saturdays. So the officer recommendation, as per the meeting agenda, is to grant the half-day operations on Saturdays. However, the draft conditions are worded so that the Saturday operations would be limited to site maintenance and rehabilitation. Site maintenance and rehabilitation would not allow for trucking of material to clients and therefore would not meet the intended purpose of the half-day operations on Saturdays. The applicant would remain at a competitive disadvantage and unable to service clients. It is understood that the limiting of Saturday operations to site maintenance and rehabilitation aims to reduce amenity concerns, particularly in regards to noise. The applicant would like to suggest a compromise in which crushing and screening operations are excluded from the Saturdays, but loading of trucks and haulage is allowed. So typically crushing and screening are the most noise generating activities on site, and therefore the exclusion of those from the Saturdays would reduce the noise levels. The necessary crushing and screening could be done during the weekdays and with the material stockpiled for haulage on Saturdays. As site maintenance and rehabilitation that are recommended to be approved for Saturdays would involve the use of heavy machinery on the site anyway, it is proposed by the applicant that the loading of the trucks and the haulage would be a reasonable addition to the Saturday operations as well, as the noise level would be similar. So that was matter number one. Then matter number two is truck movements and school buses. The applicant has applied to set a maximum number of truck movements per day to 75 return trips or 150 one-way trips to cater for periods of increased haulage for large construction projects. So typically the number of trucks would be much less, and there would be periods of no haulage when the demand is low. The officer recommendation as per the agenda is for the proposed maximum number of truck movements to be approved. However, the draft conditions state that haulage is to be outside school bus times applicable for the portion of Lowry Road being used as part of this development. So this is a new condition that in the past has not been applied for extractive operations at Quindinup. As far as the applicant is aware, there have been no issues with school buses in the past 9 years that the Quindinup extraction sites have been operational, and that's Lot 393 and the adjacent 287. The applicant understands the intention of trying to make sure that school buses are safe, however suggests that this type of conditions limiting truck movements should be based on a case-by-case consideration of risks and benefits involved. The section of Lowry Road between the site entrance and the southwestern highway that is being used by the operations is less than 500 metres long and was specifically constructed to cater for haulage trucks from the now closed Quindinup Mineral Sands mine that used to haul 24/7. The road is sealed, it's wide with the centreline markings and has room for two-way truck movements. The risk to school buses from trucks on this type of road would be much lower compared to trucks on narrow, unsealed rural roads, for example. Further, it's noted that the applicant commissioned a traffic impact assessment that found that the proposed operations did not significantly increase traffic risks. Therefore, the requirement to limit truck movements in this instance is considered unnecessary. Further, I've been in contact with the school bus services of Western Australia who have confirmed today that there is one school bus that drives through that applicable section of Lowry Road once in the morning and once in the afternoon, and both times there's a 15-minute window. So the 15-minute window provides for variation in the timing of the bus. I do note that it will take less than 1 minute for the bus to pass the relevant section of the Lowry Road. So considering there's only one bus and the section of Lowry Road in use is in good condition, it's short, it caters for heavy vehicle traffic, the applicant does not believe there's a sufficient risk to the school bus to warrant complete stoppage to haulage, and therefore the applicant's primary preference would be to remove that draft condition regarding haulage limitation during school bus times. As an alternative and a bit of a compromise, the applicant is suggesting that instead of stopping haulage, the applicant could make arrangements with the bus company so that the bus driver calls up, for example, school bus on Lowry Road on the UHF when it gets close to the pit. So I have confirmed...
Apologies, Kirsty, sorry, you're just approaching your time limit.
Nearly there.
Another minute, yeah, sorry.
Thank you. So I've confirmed with the school bus services that the buses do carry a UHF, so this is a feasible arrangement. The trucks would then watch out for the bus and there would not exit the pit until the bus has passed. So the pit personnel and truck drivers that are currently using the pit, they are required to have a UHF radio for pit communications. And like I said, the school bus services, the bus is also fitted with the radio. So the applicants also advised that they got approximately 25 subcontractors using the pits, and using the UHF radio as a way of communicating would be the most effective solution to ensure that the truck drivers are aware of the school bus when it is in the vicinity of the pits, because otherwise it would be a bit challenging to manage the sort of time-based 15-minute window of haulage exclusion twice per day across all the subcontractors. And that's all I've got. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kirsty. Was there any questions from councillors? No. Item 11, motions of which previous notice has been given. 11.1, notice of motion from Councillor John Ferguson, which is seconded by Councillor Noonan. Staged implementation of traffic calming measures, southern end Peppermint Grove Terrace, Peppermint Grove Beach. Moved by Councillor Ferguson and seconded by Councillor Noonan. Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr. Shire President. I'd like to move this motion as printed in the slightly amended form that has been distributed amongst councillors. I'll just go back a little bit in time. You may recall that this matter was brought to council several months ago by concerned residents in regard to behaviour of traffic along a particular section of Peppermint Grove Terrace and Peppermint Grove Beach. And as a consequence, a meeting was convened under council's auspices last week, and where a number of 24 residents turned up, which I think we would all agree, given the relatively short notice and the population density of the area, and on a Tuesday evening, that's a pretty good number. There was a very good presentation from council staff, and I commend them on that, and they explained to the community residents present the options that might be available to them into the future. At the conclusion of the meeting, I and Councillor Noonan agreed to bring forward a notice of motion which hopefully reflects the consensus of the meeting on that occasion. And in doing so, I would like to point out the following. I frankly would have preferred that we include items 1 and 2 in the motion as before you, implemented before Christmas, but it's been pointed out to me you can't pluck apples out of the sky, and there's no funds to do that. They'll require funding, and that the staff recommendation is that the matter come back for the mid-year budget review. I'm reasonably comfortable with that, because at least if the council supports this motion tonight, we have implemented the matter and we will embark upon it in an orderly process, and there will be a conclusion. The amendment that staff have recommended, and which I'm happy to adopt, is that in 2B, the 2 variable speed limit indications to be set to the advisory speed for this section of Peppermint Grove Terrace. Now, the original motion said 40 kilometres per hour. It's been pointed out to me that this can't be done until you actually get approval to do so, and you can only adopt a speed limit when you've actually got the approval to do so, if I'm not paraphrasing you, verbling you too much, Mr. CEO. I hope that's correct. So I'm happy to support this as it's printed. I do note that in 3, that consideration of future implementation of a 40 kilometre per hour regulatory speed limit for the whole of the Peppermint Grove Beach town site, following further community consultation and reviewing the need for physical devices. There's mixed views on that. And review of installation of road artwork, which the community is very interested in doing. Review of the additional traffic local area management requirements for the northeast along Peppermint Grove Terrace towards the upper end of the village, and reconvene the Peppermint Grove Terrace consultation group, engaged with the PGME Community Association at the end of Q1 25 to review the effectiveness of implementations measures to date, and consider future measures and budget implications. And I can't add any more to it than to say that I commend the motion to council, and hopefully we'll gain your support.
Councillor Noonan.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I'd like to thank Councillor Ferguson for bringing this motion to Council. One of the things that impressed me very much at the meeting was the depth, the thoroughness that Jamie Muir, the Shire officer, and the other Shire officers involved had gone in terms of their research and the quality of the presentation that they made to the residents who came along. The unanimity of the meeting. Now, it was an open meeting. It was widely published on the Shire website and spoken about in the Peppermint Grove community. But and it's rare that you get a meeting where, 10 or more people, but here there were over 20, where everybody was on board, and there was very, very much a consensus. And and one of the things that also came out of the meeting was that more than one resident referred to Peppermint Grove Beach as the village, and that's a wonderful indication of how they view their community and the value that they put on the lives and the safety of their neighbours. So I think that was a commendable thing to see. I appreciate the frustration that some people in the village would perhaps feel that it does seem to take a heck of a long time for us to actually do anything. But I'd ask them to bear with us, that there are procedures and approvals that have to be gained so that we can get things done, and that it's all done by the book, and that it's done well, and that we don't have repercussions coming back later on. But I would certainly encourage or reassure the people in Peppermint Grove Beach that, to the best of my knowledge, with everything that I've seen, that council and the Shire officers are working expeditiously to provide a good outcome here. So I thank Councillor Ferguson, and I commend the motion and ask other councillors to support it as well.
All right, are there any speakers against the motion? Speakers for? Question, Councillor McCleary?
Sorry, doing the joint. But, my questions evolve around the signage and things and timelines for those, and whether they were still require Main Roads authorisation to put any signs up.
The Chief Executive Officer.
Through you, Shire President, so yes, part of the reason why we recommended to Councillor Ferguson that we separate the notice of motion in this form is that the signage in relation to 1A can be done by the Shire. Matters further on both have much more of a impact on available budget, but also have to go through processes with Main Roads, and you'll note that's the comment that we make in the officer's comment within the notice of motion as well.
Okay, my next question revolves around the variable speed warning signs. A few budgets back, I put in an item to purchase a variable speed sign. I'm wondering whether that's been purchased.
We'll have to take that one on notice, Councillor.
And the final thing is probably more a comment on the thing that I did have the advantage of talking to the Roadwise officer at the Regional Roads Group on Monday, and we were talking about the variable speed signs that are available from them, and I understand they're booked out till Christmas, but they are an option, and the only cost that the Shire might incur on those is transport from where they are now to here, so that's an option that can be utilised.
Are there any further speakers on that item? Councillor Dillon?
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't want to be seen to be completely against the item. Obviously, the community have felt that there needs to be some sort of action, and I'm okay with the Shire investigating that. I must admit, I'm not necessarily in the let's slow everything down sort of brigade. I'm more of a slow and steady, let's see where things go kind of fella in terms of how to move forward with something like this. And I think generally it's been well covered, but I'd hate to see us get to the point where we just absolutely, we don't stop and really assess the need in any particular area. If we do get a bit of community alarm, let's say, about traffic in any particular part of the Shire, it will come down to driver behaviour. We can do all sorts of mitigation measures, but I'd just like to maybe temper the excitement. I would rather, to sort of mention what Councillor Noonan said, that we can't do things super quickly. I'm quite okay with that. I'd rather a considered approach so we get the right outcome rather than just race in and change things willy-nilly, because otherwise, if we did it every time a community group alerted us to what they perceive as traffic problems, we'd all be walking backwards before we knew it.
All right, Councillor Towntroy.
I have a question. I'm looking at the section under the officers' comment, and it says, please note part recommendations for 3 and 4, but there is no point 4. It only goes to 3.
Yeah, like, yeah, probably just a typo. All right, anything further? Any other speakers? Councillor Ferguson, you wish to close?
Just briefly, Mr. Shire President, I take on note the concerns expressed by Councillor Dillon, and I actually think that the sober advice from council staff to me and to Councillor Noonan, and the drafting of the notice of motion with their assistance has covered those particular considerations. Nothing gets done without the council adopting it as a budget measure in reality, other than a few warning signs, and nothing gets done regarding regulatory speed limits without referral to the community and back to council. And that's the way it should be, because sometimes these things have significant and unintended consequences unless you think it through. I do note that the intent is that even though in B that is an advisory speed limit that is subject to approval from main roads, that advisory limit signage may well be 40 kilometres per hour for that period, which hopefully it will be, because that'll give us the opportunity to assess traffic behaviour and the consequences of that. And I think that would be useful to go somewhat towards informing councillors of any anxieties they might have, and I look forward to the implementation and commend the motion. Thank you.
All right, with that, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? That's carried unanimous. Just before we proceed, I've had one written declaration of interest provided to me from Councillor Sciano on item 14.5, new motor grader. It's an indirect financial interest as declared under section 5.61 of the Local Government Act. There are no questions of which previous notice has been given. We now move to Chief Executive Officer reports. Item 13.1, Local Government Amendment Bill. Is there a mover for that item? Councillor Ferguson. Seconded Councillor McCleary. Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr. Shire President. I move the motion as printed.
Councillor McCleary. No. Are there any speakers for or against that item? No. Councillor Ferguson, anything further? I'll Put that to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? And that's carried 7-1. Item 13.2, Chief Executive Officer Reports, Performance Agreement 2024-25, minor amendment. You want to move to second, All right. Is there a mover for that? Councillor McCleary. A seconder? Councillor Terrantroy. Just before I call the mover, I'll ask the Chief Executive Officer to read out a statement.
Thank you, Shire President. I'll just make it known that obviously I have an interest in this item being the Chief Executive Officer, and it goes to the nature of my annual review and the resultant performance agreement from that review.
Councillor McCleary.
Thank you, Mr. President. Look, I'd just like to move the motion as read. I think it's a good process in some good changes in there for the CEO's KPIs.
Councillor Terrantroy. Are there any speakers for or against? No. Councillor McCleary, you wish to close? I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? That's carried unanimous. Infrastructure and Development Reports, 14.1, Town Planning Scheme number 3, Expenditure of remaining funds and repeal. Is there a mover for that item? Councillor McCleary. Seconded, Councillor Dillon. Councillor McCleary.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll move the motion as read.
Councillor Dillon.
Thank you, Mr. President. I found this item quite interesting, actually, a bit of historical stuff regarding, you know, when Julorup was conceived, so to speak, and dating back to the sort of almost mid-70s about, you know, how to, you know, pay for our infrastructure around Julorup. Basically, this TPS number 3 has served its purpose and basically now can be repealed, but we're left with a dilemma that we do have a bit of money remaining in the fund, and we've got to use it up. So there's a bit of a list in there which any of our residents and ratepayers could have a look at how we go about it and what sort of time frames we're talking. Not too sure, but ultimately, yeah, this is the correct way to move forward and yeah, put TPS 3 to bed, so to speak.
All right. Are there any other speakers for or against this item? Councillor Noonan.
Could I just ask the question more for the gallery and the anyone watching online, that any funds that are left over from closing TPS 3, do they get spent in Julorup for infrastructure projects in Julorup, or is it spread throughout the Shire?
It's only within the Julorup locality. All right. Any further speakers on that item? Councillor Terrence. Sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to note that it is an opportunity to improve the transport network and amenity throughout the infrastructure improvements and less unnecessary administration and responsibility through the repeal of TPS 3. So that's just supporting what Councillor Noonan brought up, that the money spent in Julorup.
Are there any other speakers to this item? No. Councillor McCleary, wish to close?
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to my fellow councillors for their input into this. It's important to note that the monies are in reserve funds, so they are allocated as purpose, and that's what they'll be used for. Apart from that, I just put the motion to the vote.
All right. All those in favour? That's carried unanimous. Item 14.2, Amendment to Extractive Industry Approval to increase haulage and hours of operation, Lot 393, Lowry Road, Gwindanup. Is there a mover for that item? Councillor Terrantroy. Seconder. Oh. It's already been moved by Councillor Terrantroy. Is there a seconder? Councillor Dillon. Councillor Terrantroy.
I'd like to move to defer.
As the mover, councillor, unfortunately you can't defer. I'll just clarify. Under 12 or 14. Yeah, there is one. Yeah, okay, maybe it's further on. All right, no, hang on. Yeah. Yeah, it's right. Oh, it's 12.3. I knew it was in there. Yeah. Yeah, sorry, yeah, standing order 12.3. Yeah, yes. Unfortunately, councillor, you can't move deferral. Yeah. 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 Yes, as the mover, unfortunately, you can't move a deferral. So, yeah, that was the case, but I just wanted to clarify that. All right, did you wish to still exercise your right to speak? All right, councillor Dillon. Are there any speakers for or against? No, it's on the table. It's now open to the floor. Are there any speakers for or against? You can move it, an amendment. Yeah, I can give you the call if you wish to move. Would you put your item on, your microphone on, please,
Sorry.
councillor? Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Sire President. I got confused by the motion of deferral by Councillor Tarantroy. Obviously respect it, but I'm trying to understand how that might play out. I would like to move the adoption of the amendment of the motion with the following amendment. And if you could scroll it back down. Thank you. I need to read it. Thanks. In A subclause B, it says delete and replace the following conditions D with the following, and that is B, that it reads the maximum truck movements per day is limited to 150/75 in and out, unless otherwise agreed in writing by the Chief Executive Officer. I'm not entirely happy about that either, but anyway, following a separate public advertising period with no objections being received, haulage is to be outside school hours but at times applicable. I would like to move that matter also be conditioned, Part C, that the amendment is that the consideration of B be determined after receipt of a traffic management report that is to the satisfaction of council. Now,
All right.
should that be a C in Part C? Okay.
Just get that amendment on the board.
Now, in speaking to...
Sorry, hang on, councillor, you haven't got a second yet. So is that your amendment on the board? The new condition C? I know.
Yes.
All right, is there a seconder to that amendment? Councillor Terentroy. Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr. Shire President. Look, this is a quite vexing matter, and it's quite complex for council to deal with because it's this intersection of the JDAP recommendation that was adopted and in the original issuance of the approval for this particular project, and then the consideration of the extractive industry licence by council. The council has very limited, as I understand it, and I'll be corrected by the CEO as I go, has very limited control over conditioning the extractive industry licence subject to the prior approval by JDAP. However, this is an application for a variation to the extractive industry licence, and to that extent council has some authority, limited, but some authority to consider it on its merit. And that's our bounden duty, to consider these matters on their merit. Now, to say that this particular matter is not of great consequence when it actually is a 750% increase in traffic movements to be authorised onto the site. The glittering prize offered is that we'll reduce the length of the site operation as an extractive industry. According to my reading of the original JDAP report, it was originally proposed that it would be for a duration of up to 22 years. But in this seeking of a variation to the extractive industry licence by the proponent, whilst they've suggested that might be the case, they've not offered up any actual specific number by which they might reduce the likely operating period of the particular site. So what is the community benefit that might arise from that? Well, I don't see any that's been tangibly presented by the proponent, and what we have is a situation where a road that is in reasonably good condition, I've been out to have a look at it, but is not without its hazards, and it's not far from the entry into the Southwest Highway. So we're going from the potential of 10 traffic movements in and 10 traffic movements out a day, 20 movements a day entering the highway. We're going to the possibility of hundreds entering the highway each day. Now, that hasn't been even really given any due consideration as far as I can see. And indeed, if you approach the entrance to the site along Lowry Road from, I believe the direction might be vaguely to the north-west, it is actually somewhat obscured by the native vegetation, which we don't certainly want to see destroyed any more than as a consequence of the mining process or the extractive process. So I actually think this is a reasonable way for council to be satisfied that what the proponent is seeking is reasonable in the consideration of the community, traffic management and safety. And I would suggest that you consider this amendment on its merit and take it on board. Thank you.
Councillor Terentroy.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. I agree that an increase of 750% in truck movements from 20 a day to 150 a day is a lot. Thank you.
Are there any speakers for or against the amendment? The Deputy President.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I just need to address, I think there's just one issue with the amendment, and that is its reference to satisfaction of council. It perhaps needs to actually be the reference to the satisfaction of Shire officers. Otherwise, the administrative burden on approving that traffic management report will actually come back to council. Now, difficult to navigate this through the standing orders. Personally, I would be endorsing the amendment. I think the intent of the amendment is 100% spot on and warranted, but I'll probably need to, once we're back onto the primary or substantive motion, I'll probably need to amend that again to remove the word council and replace that with Shire officers. But otherwise, completely supportive of the intent of Councillor Ferguson's amendment.
President.
Question, Councillor Ferguson?
I think it's possible for both I and as a mover and Councillor Tarrant as a seconder to accept that suggested amendment from Councillor.
Not now that someone else has spoken to the item.
Okay, then I might ask the question, what is the challenge in bringing the item back to council as opposed to staff? And I might seek the advice of the CEO on that.
As far as I'm aware, there's no mechanism for that report to come back to council with a predetermined condition. So you're essentially approving all else, but you've conditioned another part of the approval on a report coming back to council. So there's no mechanism for that. In fact, the CEO could explain that clearer.
So procedurally then, if I may ask a question of you, Mr. Shire President.
Yes.
Procedurally then,
The procedurally correct way is for the report to be the satisfaction of Shire officers.
yes, and that would require this motion that Councillor Tarantor and I have proposed to be defeated, and we then address it with Councillor Shahano's suggestion amendment.
That could be one path forward. You could vote this amendment down and then seek a new amendment with those changes, or you could accept this amendment and then amend it again.
Well, I'll accept the amendment and amend it.
Yeah, so it's up to council to determine how it may proceed, but yes.
Please guide us on this.
Yeah, so if council endorses this amendment, it becomes part of the substantive motion, and it can be amended again to change the word council to Shire officers. Yep. Are there any speakers further to the amendment? Councillor McCleary?
Thank you, Mr. President. I know a lot of discussion is going around the number of trucks and an assumption that it's going to be every day. I point out in the presentation it was an ability to up the number of movements at a time when the orders come in. Not that I'm that supportive of that, but it's, sorry. So I just wanted to clarify that one point.
All right, any further speakers to the amendment? No? Councillor Noonan?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to perhaps point out, and I fully support the amendment. I think it's a good idea, and appreciate that it perhaps should go through the Shire officers, and both Shire officers and council. I'm happy to be advised as to that. But it's interesting, I think, to note that in the presentation, which I think Ms. Coffin for, that there was in fact two additional requests in terms of loading the trucks with the material being stockpiled for the Saturday morning. So that's a change to the items that have been requested, and also the request to remove the school bus window, not the window of the school bus, but the period of time where no vehicles were, no vehicle movements to allow for the school bus to get through. So I think that speaks to a desire from the proponent for the council to be flexible, and I think that it's fair and reasonable for the council to have a reciprocal response to the proponent, and to seek that the proponent would be willing to consider other expectations or desires that the council, and indeed the community that we represent, might place on this approval. So because I think there are other matters, particularly in terms of the amount of oversight that the Shire has, the Shire officers have.
Sorry, Councillor Noonan, we're just on the amendment
Yes,
at the moment.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think in that regard that this is a good amendment, and I'd like to see it go ahead. Thank you.
All right, any further speakers to the amendment? Does the mover wish to close?
Mr. Shire President, I put on notice that should this amendment be passed, then I'll be seeking a further amendment consistent with Councillor Giuliano's suggestion.
All right, all those in favour of the amendment? And those against? And that's carried 7-1. Becomes part of the substantive motion. Councillor Ferguson. I believe you can. There's no limit to amendments. Just put to the Shire of Capel. Yep, it's consistent with other conditions then. All right, is there a seconder for that amendment? Deputy President. Councillor Ferguson.
Further comment, Mr. Shire President?
The Deputy President. Any speakers for or against that amendment? Anything further from the mover? I'll put that amendment to the vote. Those in favour? That's carried unanimous. And that becomes part of the substantive motion. Are there any further speakers to that item? The Deputy President.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I think this the amended or substantive motion is a good outcome, and I thank Councillor Ferguson for sticking in there with me. I think we both completely agreed on the intent of what was intended to be done there, and I'm just glad that we have a condition in front of us that I'm glad is compliant, obviously, in line with the other conditions. I think there's a couple of other things to address here as well, and this is where I actually start to feel a little on the fence about this application, this application to amend the extractive industry licence, I should say. I think the first thing is, and it's something that I perhaps do agree with the applicant on, is the constraints around the Saturday activities. And you only have to look into the item next on the agenda, Duquesne Road, to know that it is standard practice to have, in many of these extractive industry licences, most of them do have activity on the Saturday, be it from 7 to 12. And I don't know whether the report has effectively communicated essentially why there is that level of limitation, apart from the fact that there is quite a number of noise concerns and a few varying factors that affect noise on that site as well, which are addressed in the report. Now, the other thing I want to address is around the and it's already been mentioned, but obviously came up earlier in the presentation, around conflict with school bus routes. And I think this is something, and I hope that there's no councillors thinking that this is an opportunity to provide some level of leeway on this front. I think this is absolutely one of the strongest points in our extractive industry local law, AD 1.5.2, around heavy haulage proposed times of days that minimise the conflict with school bus pickups, and this is one of the various amendments that we made in strengthening our extractive industry local law and policies over the last 5 years. So I absolutely think that this should form part of the conditions around managing this actually quite extensive or quite large volume of vehicles entering and exiting that site. And being familiar with the site myself, and as others have said, you do head east and you actually have no visibility of the driveway at 110 kilometres an hour. There is no visibility of the driveway off Lowry Road when you are heading east. Major concern, I would like to think, and you come over the hill, you hit the vegetation, and once you come over the hill, you're then about 50 to 100 metres from that intersection, you'll be able to see that there on your right. So absolutely warrants, in my mind, a traffic management plan, along with obviously minimising the impact on heavy haulage in the times of school pick-up and drop-off. And as been identified, there is a school bus that does travel down Lowry Road, be it one. So whether that really tells you how I'm thinking about going with this particular amendment to the ELI, I'll listen to other councillors on that front. But I do have several concerns, some in favour of the applicant, some not, and I'll be interested to hear other councillors' thoughts.
Are there any other speakers? Councillor McCleary.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Deputy President. Look, what I saw in the presentation before about the school buses was they were in communications. They've worked out how many buses there, and I don't think what we've got on the table at the moment changes what they need to do. I think in the communications they'll have a time frame where they'll avoid those buses and it'll be accommodated. I don't think trying to not stop when there's only going to be one bus in and one bus out a day, I think they'll accommodate that bus in the transport process in there. So I think what we've got on the table sits pretty well.
All right, are there any other speakers for or against? Councillor Noonan.
Mr. President, I would like to move that the motion be deferred to the next ordinary council meeting.
Sure. To be to the January
Yeah.
ordinary council meeting of 2025.
The reason for that deferral is to allow more time for officers to investigate, for the traffic management report to be completed or commenced, and for other discussions with the proponent in terms of other aspects that they have asked for, so things like school bus windows and
Sure. You'll be allowed to speak on the deferment in a moment.
Yep.
Just the reasons to allow for further information.
Yep. Investigation and discussion with the proponent. So specifically into the traffic management and actually keep it broad as that.
Let me just do two conditions. Yeah, I think maybe just remove the other conditions. Just do conditions. That your deferral there, Councillor? Is there a seconder for that deferral? Councillor Mogg? Councillor Noonan?
Thank you, Mr. President. I think that that more work, more discussion needs to happen on this proposal around the traffic management. Certainly, we need to see that report. But also there are other factors that the proponent's representative has raised, and there are perhaps other things that we might wish to discuss, raise with the proponent, which they may well be agreeable with, or they may well not agree with. But if they are acceptable, then the whole point is to negotiate, to talk, and to hopefully come up with a better agreement that's better for everybody. Because I would note that there is a considerable feeling within the community that, particularly along things like the degree to which the Shire oversees and the responsibility that the Shire has for auditing, that perhaps there might be some opportunity for improvements to be made in that field, so that we can assist the proponent to perform their operations more effectively, and that we can all end up with a better outcome, that the economic resource is extracted, and that we all end up with instead of a problem and disputes over bonds and those sorts of things, that we end up with good environmental rehabilitation outcomes and so on and so forth. So I think that this motion needs more discussion between the Shire and the proponent. So that's the reason for the request for deferral.
All right, I'll put the deferral to the vote. Those in favour? And those against? And the deferral is lost 5-3. Are there any further speakers to the item? Any other speakers? I'll say a few things. It's a bit of an interesting proposal, because it's a little bit on the fence, particularly just around the Saturday operation. I can certainly agree with site maintenance and rehabilitation works. I have some concern though around the noise that loading of trucks might make with gravel material. If it was purely just sand, it's a different story, but gravel hitting those trucks and the steel, it just does make a bit of a noise. And reading the submissions from the community, there's certainly a theme of that amenity impact. So I'm generally supportive of increasing the truck movements from the point of view of it'll deplete the resource in that area quicker, and then the extractive industry will be gone, and there'll be less issues then for the community in that area to deal with. So I can see it from that point of view. I agree with the Deputy President's comments around school bus times. I think that's a very strong point that we've made in our extractive industries policy that I think we need to really uphold. It was put in there for very good reason, particularly some extractive industries down the Goodwood Road area. So it's certainly a precedent I'd like us to maintain. I think the amendment around the requirement for a traffic management plan is certainly warranted. If this was a new application, it would be a requirement. I think the change in vehicle traffic movements isn't minor. It's certainly major compared to where it's coming from. So it's something that I think we do need to look at, particularly given that there is another extractive industry using that same entry and exit. I look at it from the point of view that those two extractive industries, while they are run by the same operator, in a different world, they could be owned by two separate persons, and it'd be difficult to penalise one simply because the other one's already got the truck movement. So I know that they're taking those changes through a different process than council, which I do find disappointing. I think that the council process is certainly the easiest and most effective. But I think we do need, for the community's sake, to find out exactly what those impacts are on that area, on that road. So I'll support the amendment, the motion as it stands now, for those reasons. Are there any other speakers to the item? Councillor Noonan?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to move an amendment to the item.
Yes, Councillor?
As per an email that I sent in earlier on in the piece, if we could add an additional condition that EIL extraction and rehabilitation activities on lot 393 Lowry Road, Gwindalup, be monitored on a 3-monthly basis by Shire staff where that is feasible, comma, and a copy of the applicant's extraction and rehabilitation records must also be lodged with the Shire on a 3-monthly basis. So it's as per that email that I sent, but if you could also, after Shire staff, if you could put where feasible.
Is that your amendment on the board, councillor?
Probably want a comma after where feasible. Comma. Yep. Yes.
Yep. Is your amendment? All right. Is there a seconder to that amendment? Councillor Mogg. Councillor Noonan.
Thank you, Mr. President. In the public feedback that we received in relation to this motion and to this application, it was very clear that there was considerable opposition from not just from neighbours but from other members of the community, in particular the Capel LCDC. Michael Tischbon wrote a very, very good report, and he highlights the problems that the Shire has with some of the extraction industries that we have now. And this particular lot is one of them. And you'll all remember 2 years ago the flooding event that we had and the breach of a inadequately prepared bund and the washing of copious volumes of sand and water across Lowry Road into the neighbouring property and so on and so forth. So there are problems. There have been problems with this particular extraction industry. Now, ultimately, we're going to reach a point of peak EIL, and I think we're probably pretty close to it, where most of the basic raw materials available in the Shire will have been removed. Now, and at that point, we're going to have to, for our building sand and for our gravel and basalt, we're going to have to be transporting it from other shires, from further away. And given that currently the cost of transporting is any material is at least $1 a kilometre for any one of those trucks, we're going to be looking at substantial increases in the cost of basic raw materials. That falls on the customer. That falls on the customer, and often we are that customer, as the Shire. So, and what we're going to be left with, potentially, if the rehabilitation is not done well, is we're going to be left with a whole lot of poorly rehabilitated moonscapes. Now, we all know and we've all seen that sort of poor rehabilitation occur, and we have seen examples of it in the Shire. It's well known that once you take away all of the bauxite, that Jarrah, for example, does not grow back anywhere near the potential that the forest used to have, and they're the problems that Alcoa is facing up in the northern northern forests. So it's our responsibility, it's our duty to the citizens, to the ratepayers of the Shire, to ensure that we do the best that we can to ensure that we end up with the best outcome in the long term. Now, it's great that, and I fully endorse. I'm absolutely in favour of mining. Okay, I believe in mining. I believe that we should exploit the economic resources that the Shire has, but I think that part of that also involves that we ensure that the rehabilitation is done as well as it possibly can be. And at the moment, that is not the case for some of the EIL operators that we have. I believe that there's an expectation in the community that we take a more proactive role from the Shire standpoint. We've got one EIL officer in a Shire staff of over 90. I don't think that's adequate. I think that's something that we need to probably address in our workplace reviews over the next year. Eventually, that EIL officer will naturally evolve into being a natural resource manager, into a rehabilitation officer, because we'll end up with everything's been mined, everything's been taken out, but we don't want to have a whole series of moonscape pits where nothing will grow properly. If the Shire is more involved, as is expected by the community members, if the Shire is more involved on a 3-monthly basis where that's possible, we can bring the expertise that we have to the operator, and we can work together. So,
Councillor, you're approaching your 5 minutes.
Yep, one more minute, nearly there. So the intent of this motion is not to be confrontational or aggressive or to put the back up of the operator. It's very, very much to work together with the operator so that we ensure the best outcome, to bring the expertise that we can provide in terms of engineering, construction of bunds, timing, placement of drains, all of those sorts of things, in addition to ensuring a better outcome for retention of wildlife corridors, for rehabilitation of appropriate species and those sorts of things. I would like to see a better, stronger, more cooperative relationship with our extractive industry licence operators, so that they don't feel, I'm just going to bypass the Shire and I'm just going to go straight to SAT, and I'm going to ignore, I'm not even going to give the Shire an opportunity to have a say in this. So I want a better relationship. I think that the community expects that we are more proactive in the Shire's role in helping to oversee and support our extractive industry operators. Thank you.
Councillor Mogg. Are there any speakers for or against the Deputy President?
Thank you, Mr. President. Council is being asked tonight to deal with an amendment to the extractive industry licence, and that is to do with one condition, that is condition D. This amendment is a one-way ticket to the State Administrative Tribunal. We are not dealing with the extractive industry licence. We're dealing with traffic, with condition D. Now, I 100% agree with Councillor Newman's sentiments around monitoring and working with extractive industries, and this is perhaps something that needs to be considered as part of our strategic approach to extractive industries through our policy. But it's also not just to apply this standard of monitoring to a single application, which I'm definitely not afraid of SAT, never have been afraid of SAT, but I also prefer that we make decisions that that we can fight in SAT when we need to. And ultimately this, I think, would be a poor outcome through that process for us. Council is essentially, you apply it to extend your carport, and the council comes back and says, we've approved you to extend your carport, but we've decided we want to put some conditions on your pool pump. What's my pool pump got anything to do with my carport? Right? And that's the situation we're in at the moment. Now, when the extractive industry comes back for renewal, that is perhaps a time to consider rehabilitation and the records around rehabilitation and conditions for monitoring, right? But when we're dealing with the amendment, this is a very risky territory on this particular application, but a very well warranted process or perhaps policy in the future for all extractive industries. And it's also about fairness and equity. So I know there's been mentioned some previous incidences with this particular applicant. Those are dealt with. It's not appropriate for council to consider needing to add additional conditions because of something that may have happened historically. And that's not fair and equitable at all. Could we apply these conditions across the board through our strategic policies? Sure. That's a discussion that we should probably have. But council, I warn you, I don't have a good feeling about council moving forward with this particular amendment on this particular item tonight, and so I won't be voting. I will be voting against it.
Are there any other speakers to the amendment? Councillor Terran-Troy?
Thank you, Councillor Shoshana. You actually beat me to it. I'm going to be voting against this amendment.
Are there any other speakers to the amendment? Councillor McCleary?
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Deputy and fellow councillors. Look, rehabilitation can only occur after the extractions happen, so putting some of these clauses in there, you can't really do it till it's all removed, and then that section starts to get rehabilitated, so that's the period of 3 months. Totally agree with Councillor Ciano. This isn't the time to put those sorts of things into this licence. We're dealing with the traffic volumes and things like that in this. I'll be voting against this amendment.
Councillor Ferguson?
Thank you, Mr. Shire President. Look, I can't, noble as it is, I can't support Councillor Noonan's amendment because I concur with Councillor Giano. I can't see in my understanding of the arrangements we have between JDAP and the EILs that we issue that we have a capacity to vary the determination of JDAP. That's what the conditions that were provided at the time in terms of monitoring, reporting and the like. Now, of course, it may well be that we can move towards a more rigid and diligent compliance process with more resources. But what I don't want to see is the issue that we're dealing with tonight end up back in front of the JDAP or other authorities because we've moved outside our terms of reference. Our terms of reference are to deal with the application for variations sought by the proponent. And that really is all we can deal with tonight, as I understand it. So I can't support this amendment, albeit I have great sympathy for it. Thank you.
All right, any further speakers to the amendment? Councillor Noonan, do you wish to close?
Yes, please. Thank you very much, Mr. President. And thank you, councillors, for your presenting your views, those who have. I appreciate Councillor Ciano's scepticism. However, I feel that we shouldn't be frightened of going to the SAT. If we don't, and if we don't put pressure on extractive industry licence operators, then they'll do exactly what they are currently doing to this council right at this minute. They have brought amendments that they want to see, and in fact they've brought an extra wish list of, by the way, we also want to drive trucks on Saturday, and we also want to drive trucks when your school buses are operating. Okay, so I was reminded earlier today of a biblical passage where the meek shall inherit the earth. If this council is this meek, the earth that we will inherit will be pretty messed up. I think that we need to have a bit more courage, and I think that we need to put a bit more pressure on extraction industry licence operators, because I think that that's the expectation that the community has, and I think that eventually people are going to get sick and tired of a council that doesn't have the courage to do that, and a council that just says we're tied by this fear of getting the operator having the whip hand over us, and that we'll just accept anything that they decide to throw up. So that's how I'd like to sum it up. Thank you.
All right, I'll put the amendment to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? And that amendment is lost 6-2. All right, any further speakers to the primary motion? I believe it's only Councillor Mogg who hasn't spoken. Anything further? Councillor Terrantroy, do you wish to close? I'll put that item to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? That's carried 6-2. Item 14.3, Extractive Industry Licence 265 Duquesne Road, North Boynup. Is there a mover for that item? Councillor McCleary. Seconder. Councillor Dillon. Councillor McCleary.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Councillor Dillon. I'll move the motion as read.
Councillor Dillon.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, likewise, as read.
Are there any speakers for or against that item? Councillor Terrantroy.
I just wanted to point out with the JDAP papers that we were given on page 5, at the end of page 5, talks about the technical advice and information required. So the Shire officers met with the applicant and are of the opinion that the reasons for refusal can largely be addressed through the imposition planning conditions. As such, the meeting established the reasons for the alternate recommendation and aimed to discuss any suggested changes made by the applicant to the alternative recommendation. At the conclusion of this meeting, the Shire recognises that several changes being made to the alternate recommendation have now put the application in a position to be supported, subject to the appropriate conditions being applied.
Are there any further speakers to that item? Councillor Ferguson.
Mr. Shire President, basically it's the adoption of an EIL that has been conditioned by the JDAP, notwithstanding our reservations about that, and the particular way in which this JDAP hearing was conducted. When you read the minutiae of the report, shall we say, was interesting, and but what I just find it's not an entirely satisfactory outcome from my perspective, but I see no option other than to adopt it, given the constraints we have as a council under the state legislative framework that we have to deal with. Thank you.
Any further speakers to that item? Councillor McCleary, you wish to close?
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, look, this is the completion of an extractive industry licence seeking approval, and they've got through all the checkpoints, and this is the final outcome.
I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? That's carried 6-2. Item 14.4, Local Planning Policy 6.3, Exemptions for Minor Development Amendments, Consideration and Final Adoption. Is there a mover for that policy? Councillor Dillon. Seconded, Councillor Mogg. Councillor Dillon.
Thank you, Mr. President. Not really much to contribute to this item other than to say it's just a bit of housekeeping after some changes from the Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage advice. So just some minor amendments to our local code.
Councillor Mogg. Are there any speakers for or against that policy? Councillor Tarantroy.
I just think it's important to say that a failure to adopt this local planning policies will result in unnecessary assessments and delay for applicants in processing minor development.
Sure, hang on. All good? Yeah. Sorry, just looked like there was an issue with the live streaming. All right, any further speakers on that policy? No. Councillor Dillon. I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? That's carried unanimous. All right, item 14.5, request for tender 2412, supply and delivery of new motor grader. The Deputy President has declared an indirect financial interest and will leave the room for the consideration of this item. All right, is there a mover for that? Sorry, Councillor Noonan, could you just get the door? Thank you. Oh, sorry. Just hold 5. All right, is there a mover for that item? Councillor Ferguson. Seconded, Councillor Mogg. Councillor Ferguson.
Why not?
Councillor Mogg. Are there any speakers for or against? No. Anything further, Councillor Ferguson? I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Someone would like to collect the Deputy President? Community and Corporate Reports, 15.1, Enterprise Resource Planning ERP Solutions, Selected Vendor Price Extension. Councillor McCleary is moving. Is there a seconder? Councillor Ferguson? Councillor McCleary.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll move the motion as read and further to say that this is just a procedural process to keep the tenders and pricing open.
Councillor Ferguson? Any speakers for or against that item? Councillor Ferguson? McCleary, anything further? I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? That's carried unanimously. 15.2, Community Events Sponsorship Scheme Round 2. Moved Councillor Mogg. Seconded by Councillor Tarantroy. Councillor Mogg.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the motion as read.
Councillor Tarantroy. Are there any speakers for or against that item? There's no further. Councillor Dillon.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd just like to point out that Capel is fast becoming the centre of the equine universe, proudly supported by the Shire, with this particular round going to the future eventers and the horse and pony club. So while it's quite public, my lack of affinity for horses, it's good to see the Shire is still supporting local equine groups. Thank you.
Are there any further speakers to that item? Councillor Ferguson?
I can't let that pass, Mr. Shire President. I actually attended the my first polo cross event with Councillor Dillon, and despite his very plainly spoken views of horses and the horse industry generally, he was very supportive of the concept. And actually, it's a fantastic facility. We actually got a great facility out there, the club room, new club room, and what have you, and the community just really relishes in that opportunity of what we have here, and I actually think we can further develop it to be, you know, a paramount destination for people involved in activity. And there's a whole ecosystem, the word I've used before, that goes with it. When you see the people turn up with their floats, their horses, their kiddies, their paraphernalia, and what have you, it's like the circus coming to town, and it's actually a very, very positive activity. And in general, I've got nothing but support for the other sponsorships that are mentioned here. So I'm happy to give it my support.
Are there any further speakers to that item? Councillor Terrantroy?
Yes, I'm actually all for this as well. I mean, the future adventures, I mean, it's great getting youth development happening and skill building, community engagement and cohesion, and inclusivity and accessibility. Also, with CREP and the Pony Club, I think it's a wonderful facility. I went to the polo cross recently. I think it was on, Sunday the 10th of the 11th. Went to my first polo cross games as an invited member, and it was wonderful. I had a really good time, learnt a lot, and saw these beautiful animals, which I've always loved, horses doing their best and working in unison with their riders. Amazing. And the horses also seem to really enjoy the team of working with their rider, but with the team of the other horses as well. It's amazing. Thank you.
All right. Any further speakers on the sponsorship scheme? Councillor Mogg, do you wish to close? I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? That's carried unanimously. 15.3, Boyne Up Pump Track Feasibility, Response to Petition. Is there a mover for that item? Councillor Mogg. Seconder? Councillor Terrantroy. Councillor Mogg.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the motion as read, and it was remembering this motion and who presented it and why was just so favourable and brilliant and brave by the person, and just fully support this motion. Excited to see it come back to council.
Councillor Terrantroy.
I just love seeing young people getting involved in the process of council, and Zach Hawkins and Kylie Hawkins of Boyne Up, and their 140 signatories on the petition. So yeah, this is a fantastic thing. It's going to be looked at and put into the endorsed into the sports spaces plan, and the inclusion of immediate 1 year, short term 1 to 5 year, medium term to 5 year recommendation. So this is in the plan. Thank you.
Are there any further speakers to that item? Councillor Mogg, do you wish to close? Put that to the vote. Those in favour? That's carried unanimous. 15.4, accounts paid during the month of October 2024. Is there a mover for those accounts? Councillor Ferguson. I saw your hand, Councillor. Seconder? Councillor Dillon. Councillor Ferguson.
Mr. Shire President, I move the accounts be adopted as printed.
Councillor Dillon. Any discussion on those accounts? Councillor Terrantroy.
Just to say that for transparency for anyone out there watching, I asked 4 questions and got good answers for my questions about the expenditure. So I really believe the Shire staff are doing an exceptional job in this area. Thank you.
Any further speakers to those accounts? Councillor Ferguson, do you wish to close?
I'm fine, thanks, Mr. President.
Put those to the vote. Those in favour? It's carried unanimous. 15.5, the financial reports for the 31st of October 2024. Is there a mover? Councillor McCleary. Seconded by Councillor Dillon. Councillor McCleary.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move the motion as read.
Councillor Dillon. Any speakers for or against those financial statements? Councillor McCleary. Put that to the vote. Those in favour? That's carried unanimous. Item 15.6, Road Reserve Utilisation of Unmade Portion, Quilben Road, Dalyellup. Is there a mover for that item? Councillor Dillon. Seconded, Councillor McCleary. Councillor Dillon.
Thank you, Mr. President. Look, we might never ever solve world hunger, but we can reallocate 12 square metres of land. No, just item is read. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councillor McCleary.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's a sensible motion and it removes an asset that we would have trouble maintaining, being it so small.
Any speakers against that item? Speakers for? There's nothing further. Councillor Dillon. I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? And that's carried unanimous. 15.7, re-adoption of the financial year 2024-25 rate table. Is there a mover for that item? Councillor Ferguson. Seconder. Councillor Terran-Troy. Councillor Ferguson.
It's been a bit of a journey, Mr. Shire President, but we've arrived here, and I think what's been prepared by staff in order to tidy up this inadvertent publication error has been commendable, and I can only assume, and reasonably, that based on the advice that's been received, that we're in good grounds to do what we're doing, and so accordingly I support the motion.
All right, I'll put recommendation 1 to the... Sorry, hang on. Councillor Terran-Troy is the seconder.
I'll just say that I support this. It's just a correction of something that was a formatting issue, an administrative issue. And I'm glad that we're going through this process and that we've got this done now. Yep, thank you.
Are there any speakers for or against recommendation 1? Councillor Dillon.
Thank you, Mr. President. Look, I know there's going to be certain people in the community who are going to be watching this particular motion pretty closely. I share the concerns of Councillor Ferguson in that I asked, are we absolutely sure this is good to go? And I've been reassured that it's been checked numerous times through numerous lawyers and professional bodies. We are doing the right thing, going about this particular way. So I do commend it to Council.
Apologies, just one moment. Yeah, there's only... Sorry. Councillor Noonan.
It's been a fairly painful and a salutary lesson for us, this journey that we've been taken over, and you know, there's no doubt that it's cost us a bit of money as well, which is unfortunate. So I'm sure, I know that the staff will take every step that they can to make sure that it doesn't occur in the future. And also we need to be perhaps on our game a little bit more as councillors. That I know that some of us did have concerns about this and raised those concerns, but perhaps we need to be a bit more forthright, and perhaps next year that underneath the rates table, we could actually have some explanatory notes making very, very clear that when we say rate in the dollar, we mean $1 as a unit of one, and so a rate of 0.08 means 8 cents, and eight and a quarter, so 0.0825 means 8.25 cents out of every dollar. I think we need to perhaps make that blatantly explicit to prevent this sort of unfortunate occurrence happening again. Thank you.
Are there any further speakers to that item? No, I'll just say a few things. Look, I agree with a lot of those comments from Councillor Noonan. It was an interesting journey to go on. But look, I suppose very early in the piece, once the department made us aware, we've owned the mistake, we've admitted it, we take responsibility for it, and have decided to proceed in this very public manner of addressing it, something that wasn't required, but we are honest with the community who have put us here to do a job. That, look, as we've said, we've made a mistake, we've gone about correcting it, which I think is the good thing to do. So I think we should proceed with this item, and then we can get back to focusing on a lot of the deliverables the community wants us to do through our corporate business plan and strategic documents. So I'll commend that to the council. Are there any further speakers on the item? Councillor Ferguson, do you wish to close?
Thank you, Mr. Shire President. I'd just like to support your comments regarding the way in which council has dealt with this. Once the issue arose, it was acknowledged, dealt with publicly, and proceeded in an orderly and professional way. And I don't think any complaint that might come from certain members of the community about council not being open and transparent about this has no basis for or justification. I think we've actually acknowledged the issue and we've dealt with it, and we've taken the advice, the appropriate advice, and followed that appropriate advice. And here we are today, and hopefully this will just tidy the matter up. Thank you.
With that, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? And that's carried unanimous. All right. There is no new business of an urgent nature, so we move to public question time. Is there any questions from the public? No. Motions without notice? Is there any notices of motions for consideration at the next ordinary meeting of the council? Items for consideration behind closed doors. There is one item this evening, item 20.1, which 20.1, designate a senior employee, Director of Community Corporate Services, extension of employment contract. All right, I will move that the meeting go behind closed doors in accordance with Shire of Capel Standing Orders Local Law 2016 12.1G to consider a confidential item. Is there a second for that? Councillor Dillon. All those in favour? That's carried unanimous. Thank you very much. So we've just gone behind closed doors, so I'll just have to ask you to leave the chambers for the duration of this item. Once it's dealt with, you're welcome to come back. Now that Council has returned from behind closed doors, I can inform the public that Council 1 endorses that the position be offered a 5-year contract of employment extension in the Shire senior employee position of Director of Community and Corporate Services, and 2 notes and supports that following the signing of the contract of employment, a formal public announcement be made. All right, there being no further business on the agenda this evening, I'll declare the meeting closed at 7:54 p.m. Thank you very much for your attendance.